Hi everyone. So, welcome back to Friendly Tech Chats, and today we're not talking about tests. Today we're talking about Solid, but not just Solid. I think everyone knows about these principles in some shape or form. They've been like a staple, I think, of software engineering training at least for probably 15, 20 years now. Um, and but recently, I think March 16th, 2021, Dan North published a blog post which we will be linking uh, in the description, where basically the tagline is everything about Solid is wrong. So we thought, well, this is gonna be an
Very good, very
interesting.
good, very good toxic topic to
Ah,
pick up. Yes.
there we go. This one is something that Mikola just can't wait to get his claws into. Go right ahead.
Yes. So I guess we all have had these issues with any of the principles because they can be applied and misapplied. And I don't think that Dan North is really necessarily the first from whom I hear that some critique on the solid principles. But it's a good summary. I think it's good to revisit them and give our reaction on the point by point. What if we think about that? What do we think about our experience, particularly with these items, with these principles, and do we agree with the points of Dan North?
Yeah,
So let's go just one by one and see what we
sounds
have
good.
from there. Single responsibility principle is the first one.
Yeah,
What is your opinion on single responsibility principle?
yeah. I always, when applying this, added the caveat that it's a single responsibility at the current abstraction level, because there is no code that does only one thing, and I think that that's also the point that Dan North makes. And to me, I've always explained that away as one thing at the current abstraction level, but to me, the value was always in judging these abstraction levels and not so much in judging there's only one thing.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I guess your approach is very sensible, and that's a very way to look on that. I like how Dan points it here. He suggests to write simple code using the heuristic that it fits in your head, or broadly speaking, in the head of your team colleagues, whoever will be reading this particular code. And
Yeah,
that's more or less what you're probably also saying. You're choosing the level of abstractions that fits a particular problem, and that's why you define whether it's one thing or not one thing.
yeah. Um, though to be honest, it is I think easier to fit multiple levels of abstraction in your head than it is to write good code. So I don't entirely think that does it fit in my head is enough of a heuristic for writing good code.
Okay, then I will come with my point also. Why I do like the whole point of Dan here on the single responsibility, because I saw some damage caused by this particular principle. It's where it's applied. Okay, this thing we should split those things because they are doing different things. Well, and different is a subjective. That's I guess the point that we have.
Yeah,
Same or different depends on the who is looking at that. And for me, the damage comes from that. Then you have multiple small things split out. And again, to figure out what it does together, you need to recompose those things. And that's why I like this concept very much, what fits in my head. Every single level of abstraction is also a complication. So you want to add them if you have reasons to separate them. That is, they will be changing separately, or the most important, they complicate the reasoning because they are intermixed with each other.
yeah. It's just particularly hard, I think, to make this judgment for other people. So I think for the alignment of mental models between different people that come from different backgrounds, have different kinds of experience with the context, it is really important to make the code um, properly self-explanatory. And I think introducing abstractions to better describe what's going on is usually a better default than what fits in my personal head.
So you disagree with this point in general?
Yes,
That is not always the case.
I disagree that my head is a good representation of every head.
Yeah, that's for sure. I also say this. Your
Yeah,
head
and
is not a good representation. Mine is a little bit better, but still not
but I
perfect.
think this is generally true for software,
Yes, that's
for anyone. So I think that means that we having this as a heuristic treats into this bias of optimizing for our own understanding, and our own understanding is already biased because we wrote the thing. So that's why I would err on the side of explainability, and I think abstractions do that.
okay. So we are taking this point as 1-1. I'm
Okay,
with
let's
Dan.
go.
You are not completely agreeing.
Yeah.
Let's move to
okay.
the next one. Open closed principle. That's the principle that I have the most problem with. I should say, in my experience, because, and I think Dan is pointing this very nicely, that nowadays we usually work the other way around. We don't want to keep things unchangeable and build around them. We want to morph our code, to always revisit, refactor the things, with to improve our understanding, to adjust the code for our feed, especially in the enterprise area where we have some deliverables. That's with one production, for example, at bol.com. There's absolutely no point to follow that reason. And when people are coming and saying with this mindset that we should follow this, I think it's very, very counterproductive. So here I am 100% agree with on together with that.
Yeah, I think it makes no sense whatsoever in a microservice context.
Yeah, even in bigger service, as long as it's one deliverable, it
Yeah.
makes sense in the cases where you have libraries, for example.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. With library, that's a different story. You want to think ahead of that. You won't be able to change with some servers, application servers, and things like that. With APIs, maybe. Yes, there it's a different story. But on the level of the code, absolutely no go today. I will just like to finish about open close. I like this. Then mentioned craft accretion principle, and that's what I often see when people do follow this open close, that you start to get the onions, not the good onions like in hexagonal architecture. They call it also onions. For me, onions is the best thing, where you have some thing which was written 10 years ago, then something
and no one dares
8
touch
years, and then you have
just
layers and layers
around it.
around it. Yes, that's what this segregation leads to. No. Okay, let's go now further. You kick it out. Interface segregation principle.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a hexagonal design, which is, I think, a good example of how you can use interfaces to improve the reasonability of your code. But there's this pervasive idea that everything should be coded against an interface so that the underlying implementation can be switched out. I think that makes no sense either in a microservice. I mean, if you want to change the implementation, just change the implementation.
Yes, was it really about this? Because I thought that the interface segregation was about extracting multiple interfaces, like having them very fine-grained.
Right, yeah, okay. So indeed, my point belongs more with the dependency inversion principle. You're right. Yeah.
Okay, let's then finish the interface segregation, because I think Dan here is not very strongly against it. He's more saying that it's a pattern, not that much of the principle. And I generally like the idea of splitting bigger interfaces in a little bit smaller ones. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not. But I do have also some negative experience with that, when they become too fine-grained and too like, you have too many small pieces, and then they tend also to become generalized. So it comes together with generalization. So you have lots of small lambdas or one method interfaces, then they become something very vague, like transformer thing, and then it just loses all the point of the interface. But I guess it's more indeed on knowing where to stop with this approach, with this practice.
To me, this is really because it's so central in the way I reason about code. To me, it's about defining the right abstractions. If your abstraction makes sense with multiple methods, by all means, have those multiple methods in a single interface. And if it makes sense to have two separate abstractions as interface and one implementation for those two, that's also fine. But to be honest, I rarely encounter that it makes sense for more than two interfaces.
So we discussed the three principles so far. So
Right.
single responsibility principle, 1-1.
Yeah,
Open closed principle.
we're all in Dan's corner.
I agree.
Yeah, so that's
And we
3-1 for Dan.
Yes, and we did some interface segregation principle.
Yeah.
Where the point of from Dan is not too strong, I think, and we generally agree with his points, so we agree.
Yeah, sure. But not strong enough to give him points, actually. I think
Yeah,
we'll keep it at
that's fine.
3-1.
And,
Yeah.
But the original point is also not too strong, so.
No, exactly.
So by
yeah.
saying pass.
Yeah, exactly, pass. But still, Dan is 3-1 up ahead.
Yes, we follow you.
Exactly.
We support you. We support you.
Yeah, so we touched a little bit on the dependency inversion principle, and we haven't talked about Liskov substitution principle yet. So we'll do that next week.
Good. Small steps, baby steps.
Yes. Awesome.